Nearly 2 years to the day after her husband was killed in a hit-and-run accident, a woman got to speak to the driver. Mark Gobble was a teacher at the Texas School for the Deaf here in Austin. Today, dozens of people in the deaf community filled the courtroom for the sentencing of Roman Turullos-Gonzales. KXAN's Chris Sadeghi was in the courtroom when Gobble's widow finally got her chance to speak for her husband.
Even though the words came through an interpreter and through the tears in her eyes, Leslie Hussey finally got to say what she so carefully thought.
Roman, you killed my husband and the father of my children.
She had 2 years to think about it, to play it over in her head, what to say to the driver who left her husband, Mark Gobble, to die.
It's been horrible. There's a huge hole in our lives.
Just how huge, she didn't just tell Roman Turullos-Gonzales. She showed him. She showed him weddings, she showed him birthdays, and she showed him 2 children. By the end of the video, she wasn't the only one with tears. She saw through her own and through his.
You maybe cried, manipulated, may try to convince, but your actions does show the truth of your character.
Turullos-Gonzales pled guilty to failure to stop and render aid in a case that has helped lead to changes in the law. A proper punishment is now the only question.
Our hope is that he will get serious consequences for what he did.
What he did to take something that now must live on in pictures.
You entered our lives and took my husband away.
From the Travis County Courthouse, Chris Sadeghi, KXAN News.
Since this case must be tried under the old law, Turullos-Gonzales faces between 2 and 10 years in prison. Judge David Wahlberg is expected to hand down a sentence tomorrow. We thought it would be helpful to tell you Gobble's death and the death of Courtney Griffin helped change hit-and-run laws here in Texas.
In 2011, Gabrielle Nestande killed Griffin with her car and drove off. A jury convicted Nestande of negligent homicide, and she served 6 months in prison. Hit-and-run laws used to carry lower penalties for people who sped off after a crash, but last September they changed to discourage drivers from leaving the scene. Cases of failure to stop and render aid are now charged as second-degree felonies. That's the equivalent of intoxication manslaughter. The punishment range is now 2 to 20 years in prison. The old punishment used to carry a maximum of 10 years behind bars.